Alright guys, so it looks like our alien comrades have finally come down to Earth to free us from this capitalist hellscape, or at least we can hope. But in all seriousness, there's been some weird shit going down in the skies over North America and across the world over the last couple of days. So obviously about a week ago at this point, I covered the United States shooting down that Chinese balloon after it traversed across the entirety of the continental United States. They eventually shot it down over the Atlantic Ocean, and then we recovered it, and we're doing these investigations and all of that. And it seems like in the aftermath of that everybody is kind of on edge a little bit, and we've sort of revamped the kinds of things that we are looking for in the skies, and that has led to a whole bunch of new detections of some strange objects. So just in the last couple of days, I've counted at least 3 different UFOs or potential balloons or drones or whatever you want to refer to them as being shot down or dealt with just in the last couple of days. Okay, so here is the first one, right? From the Washington Post, they say U.S. jet shoots down high altitude object over Alaska. So what are they talking about here? They say a U.S. fighter jet shot down a high altitude object in Alaskan airspace on Friday, officials said, marking the second such encounter in a week after the plotting cross-country flight by a suspected Chinese spy balloon unleashed ferocious political backlash against the Biden administration. Just one small update to the Chinese spy balloon saga. Obviously, I think, we were justified in shooting it down and all of that. We shouldn't just let China fly spy balloons across our country. But at the same time, I've learned in the last couple of days that not only does the United States have a prolific spy balloon operation of our own that we are actually investing more money in for the future to use against some of our political adversaries, but we have also sent potentially upwards of like 10 or so balloons into Chinese airspace, apparently, over the last couple of years. So, I mean, again, I think that entire story was kind of overblown or exaggerated to a large extent. It was as if like a nuclear bomb was about to be dropped on the United States. But anyways, they move on in this article. They say, the latest object, which officials say that they have not conclusively identified, was roughly the size of a car and much smaller than the Chinese airship that was shot down on Saturday, said Brigadier General Patrick Ryder, a Pentagon spokesman, and a U.S. military officials then offered few details. However, they do not yet know the object's origin, its capabilities, or what the craft was doing over U.S. airspace, Ryder said, noting that it was first detected by radar on Thursday. So they're basically saying they don't know what the fuck's going on. Is that true? I don't know. This is the Pentagon. Can't trust them at face value. Are they hiding something? Who knows as of right now? This is just the information that we're working with. They say that President Biden directed the strike, said John Kirby, a White House spokesman. The Pentagon had recommended downing the object because it was soaring at about 40,000 feet, potentially threatening civilian air traffic. I believe the Chinese spy balloon was at like 60,000 feet, which is why they decided not to shoot it down, because it was above the altitude that commercial planes actually end up flying at. But they said it was downed over frozen waters off the coast of northeastern Alaska, and he says, we're still trying to learn more. I want to stress again that we don't know what entity owns this object. There's no indication that it's from a nation or an institution or an individual. Okay, so I mean, again, they came out very quickly and said it was, a Chinese spy balloon, so I would think that if there was any indication that this was actually something that was sent by another country, they would be very quick to jump on that and to, use this as a way to do agitated propaganda and ramp up, efforts surrounding the military budget and all of that stuff, right? So the fact that they don't, or they at least aren't saying, what potentially this came from, where it came from, how it's actually being operated, kind of gives you some second thoughts there. But now we move on to the next one. So they say here from CNN, U.S. fighter jet shoots down airborne object over Lake Huron on Sunday. Okay, now keep in mind, as far as I know, this is the first time that we have had to shoot down objects like this, at least with this, consistency and with this repetition in this short of a period of time in the history of the country. So this is not something we do all the time, at least not that we actually know of, or not that the public has been made aware of. So this is pretty unprecedented stuff, the fact that this is even happening at all. But they give us a little bit of details on this one. They say a U.S. U.S. F-16 fighter jet shot down another airborne object over Lake Huron on Sunday afternoon at the direction of Joe Biden, and Press Secretary, again, Pat Ryder, said that the object was not assessed to be a military threat, but that it was a flight hazard. Okay, so that's basically what we know as of right now about this individual one. Again, we're going to have to see some new information coming out as potentially they recover some of these the debris from this, and maybe they give us some information, don't give us other information, but we're just going to have to wait and see on a lot of this because it's still up in the air to a significant degree, in my opinion. But okay, so here we get to the third one. So this one was sort of like over, basically like shared space between the United States and Canada. I think it was technically over Canadian airspace, but basically because of NORAD, which is essentially this like joint Air Force command structure that we have between the United States and Canadian militaries. The United States ended up shooting this object down in Canadian airspace, but they say here from Reuters that the U.S. has shot down a mysterious object near the Canadian border. Okay, so they say U.S. military fighter jets on Sunday shot down an octagonal object over Lake Huron. Kind of weird that it's an octagon, apparently, but the Pentagon said, okay, so the Pentagon is telling us about this octagon-shaped object in the sky, and a little shape humor there for you guys, I guess, but the latest incident since a suspected Chinese surveillance balloon put North American security forces on high alert. It was the fourth flying object, okay, so not three, fourth flying object to be shot down over North America by a U.S. missile in a little more than a week, and China's foreign ministry said that it had no information on the latest three flying objects shot down by the United States. They say U.S. Air Force General Glenn Van Herk, who is tasked with safeguarding U.S. airspace, not doing a great job here right now, Glenn, but he says that he told reporters that the military has not been able to identify what the three most recent objects are, how they stay aloft, or where they are coming from. This is a key part here that I think is really interesting surrounding this UFO discussion. He says, quote, "We're calling them objects, not balloons, for a reason," okay? And he says, "We will not rule out aliens or any other explanation." What? Hang on a second. Okay, so they're not ruling out aliens? I mean, listen, that could mean that, like, okay, we're just not ruling this out because we don't rule anything out, point blank, period. And so, yeah, theoretically, hypothetically, maybe there's a 0.00001% chance that this could be some sort of an extraterrestrial object. But it kind of gives me a little bit of pause there because they're also coming out and saying, according to, a lot of the reports that we've been getting from the pilots who directly saw this, as well as obviously a lot of these Pentagon officials and spokespeople and all of that, that it's not even just that they don't know what these objects really are or where they came from or who potentially sent them. It's also that they don't even understand some of the underlying physics, and we've seen this with previous, Pentagon released footage of UFO sightings before, that like to some extent at least, we don't know how a lot of these objects are even doing the things that they are doing physically as they are in the air, meaning that, some people are saying they don't have propulsion, activated within them, or at least none that we can detect to, a solid extent or anything like that. And so it's like, it's not even just that some of these objects, we don't know the origins of them. It's also that like, we don't even conceptually understand how they are doing some of the things that they are doing, at least with previous sightings. So I'd be curious to see if that overlaps with some of these specific instances that we've recently engaged with shooting some of these objects down. Not really obviously a big fan of war on this channel to any extent whatsoever, but especially not with some sort of an intergalactic, a force that could potentially be coming down to Earth. Don't really want to pick a fight with them, if you ask me, but again, it's not only just happening in the United States. Apparently in China as well, they've had some sort of unidentified flying object near the Yellow Sea that they're deciding to shoot down as well. And there was also another story that was coming out of Uruguay of a similar phenomenon. So it's like, this seems to be happening all over the fucking place recently. And again, a lot of this still remains to be unexplained. Now, what is the simplest explanation that we could possibly ask for here? Well, hear from Tom Rogan, who we actually just had on Breaking Points today, who I think had like a decent take on this. This is like the boring, basic take. Okay, so they say likely all these scrambles for objects are not because objects just started flying around to a more significant degree, but because A, NORAD, again, that joint command force with the United States and Canadian Air Forces, is expanding its radar hits of interest to include balloons and smaller objects in the aftermath of the Chinese spy balloon gate and all of that. So they're expanding what they're basically looking for with their radar technology. That could explain why we're seeing so many more objects in the sky. It doesn't explain what the objects are, but it would give us an indication why we've seen like such a, a quick succession, a string of all of these different UFOs in a very short order here. But he says B, it's also political. So the White House told the Pentagon told Pentagon, who then told NORAD to intercept anything essentially if it's in doubt in any way, shape, or form. So you have NORAD that is basically expanding what they're looking for in the skies. They have an order from Joe Biden and obviously from the Canadian militaries as well to just go and shoot these down the second that you detect them. So that could be why we're seeing more and more of these in the sky, and getting some more of an indication in terms of why we're seeing so many more of these recently. But again, there's still a lot that's unexplained here. There's still a lot unexplained about potential propulsion technology, which is what I was just talking about. So with that being said, I want to watch this short little 1-minute CNN clip where they get into a little bit of that and give us a little bit of some of the mystery that remains and some of the contradictions in the reports that were coming out from the pilots who were engaging with these. So let's watch this real quick.
Interesting. This is kind of unusual that these pilots saw different things, and that is sort of, I guess, adding to the mystery of all this.
Yeah, not even the pilots apparently were really able to identify what they saw. And just to take you back for a sec, on Thursday, the U.S. defense officials sent F-35 fighter jets up to try to figure out what this object was that was flying around near Alaska. Those pilots, we have learned, have given very conflicting accounts of what they actually experienced, with some pilots saying that the object interfered with the plane's sensors, other pilots saying that they didn't really experience that, other pilots saying that when they looked at the object, they could identify no identifiable propulsion system, and they did not know how it was actually staying in the air, cruising at that altitude of about 40,000 feet. So this has all added to the Pentagon's wariness.
Okay, so again, that last part is what really makes this a lot more interesting to me, is the propulsion of this. Now listen, you could turn around and say, oh, well, that just means that it's a balloon, right? Because balloons don't have the same like jet exhaust that a typical fighter jet would. Well, no, apparently the balloons, like the Chinese spy balloon that was just recently shot down, they do have propulsion technology on board that we can detect, that we can see. So the fact that some of these don't have that, or at least aren't visible, and that you have pilots giving conflicting reports, it just adds a lot to this. And honestly, again, I mean, I'm not going to speculate and make a definitive guess as to like saying, okay, this is the alien invasion that is upon us or anything like that, but there's definitely some shady shit going on. Now there's also some people who are saying that this might just be a psyop and the government is trying to distract us from the Ohio train derailment and all of that. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't think they're that sophisticated. I think that they're probably to a significant degree incompetent in this sense, and I think genuinely that they probably don't know what the fuck is going on to a large extent, and that might be why there's so much confusion happening right now. But again, it could be a number of different things. This could just be foreign tech from other governments around the world. It could be some, a secret U.S. government project that we haven't been made aware of. It could be a psyop if you want to go that route, or it could literally just be like aliens or something like that. Like there's a million different things that this could end up being at the end of the day. But regardless of which one of those it ends up being, there's one thing that is always going to be true here in the United States, and that is our politicians using any opportunity that they can possibly use to justify ratcheting up the military budget, or at least maintaining it at its already completely absurd and bloated state that it is currently in. So here from the Hill, they say Chinese spy balloon has GOP saying no cuts to defense. So right, these Republicans who are coming out and saying we need to slash the woke military budget or whatever, collapsed instantly the second that you have a goddamn Chinese balloon in our airspace. Apparently $1 trillion a year for the military isn't enough for them to be able to handle that. We need to keep escalating it year on year on year. We need to keep giving billions and tens of billions of dollars in handouts to the military industrial complex. We need to keep ratcheting up tensions with China and Russia and every other adversary that the Pentagon tells us that we should hate on a daily basis. And so this is just the bare bones consistency when it comes to American politics. They will never touch the military budget. They will never actually push for substantial cuts to the Pentagon budget. So I mean, you see these GOP frauds here out in the open for everybody to see. But there you go. That's my basic outline in terms of what has been happening over the last couple of days. Again, I honestly would kind of be hopeful that maybe this is aliens. I think that would spice things up a little bit. I think maybe humans could learn a lot from potentially some sort of like hyper advanced intergalactic alien species, or with all of the technology that they could potentially have or something like that. But this is what we know right now. I'll leave it there. I'll keep you guys updated if we end up interacting with any more of these UFOs in the next couple of days.
Everyone is saying good Politic guy has the best Politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me. Everyone is saying